What's up,
Peace.
y'all? We're Team 7, aka Team Air, as Anthony introduced us. My name's Gideon. I was the team lead for this project, which means my role was physically assembling the hardware as well as physically putting the software that my team members wrote and developed into the actual Raspberry Pi. Additionally, I worked to schedule meetings and Zoom calls with our group outside of class time.
My name is Leo Pui, and I was a hardware researcher, so I just researched the hardware, and I helped him kind of like put it together and like looked for certain ways he could do our project, basically, since I wasn't there physically.
My name's Alicia. I was head programmer. I made sure that all the code was on a Google Doc and accessible to Gideon.
Hi, my name is Steve. I was a documenter, and my job was to make sure that the entire experience was written down so that it can be referred to later on.
Next slide, please.
So we tried to solve a social issue, and that is many low-income families, orphanages, and shelters don't have a steady or reliable Wi-Fi connection, and it's often due to a lack of funds. So, especially during this pandemic, it is ever so important now than ever that you have Wi-Fi access because it's a means of survival, because it's required for you to complete any task, whether it's for work or for school. So we thought that using a $35 Raspberry Pi, we could create a Wi-Fi hotspot that could be used to support a multitude of connections. And then when within this hotspot, users could do a lot of things, such as they could download files, they could browse the web, they could stream videos and audio, they could upload files, and they could also check their emails, which is something that's really important skill to do in this day and age.
So basically, the hardware aspect of this project was just the Raspberry Pi hotspot, and all you needed was an Ethernet cable, a router, a power supply. Also, there were other things like a breadboard, pin adapters, and connecting an LED that was basically showing whether or not it had an internet connection, and the only output was an LED to show that. Since I wasn't a part of it, like actually physically there, I'm just gonna guess that it was easy putting the variables together and step-by-step instructions from the internet. Next slide.
So this is a specific piece of our code, and it makes sure that we are connected to the Ethernet through Ethernet connection, and it also makes sure that we have LED connection. And so a high-level piece of code that's in this is an if statement, and it tests whether the new RX packets are greater than the regular RX packets or just the RX packets. And the libraries we use were time and subprocess, and some challenges that we had was the Raspberry Pi Wi-Fi itself would drop out whenever was working on the LED connection. Next slide.
Yeah, so after a lot of debugging and confusion and, in all honesty, a little bit of anger, we finally got our hotspot to properly work, and we got our LED to turn on when the connection is made. So this was like a huge achievement for our group because we worked super hard and experienced a lot of trial and error when setting up our project. So, to finally get our Wi-Fi connection up and working felt super gratifying. And our project achieves its goal because a solid Wi-Fi connection can be made to the hotspot. When testing our Wi-Fi hotspot, we learned that the user receives the best connection when they're close to the router, ideally in the same room, but the connection is still stable 1 or 2 rooms away, but it starts to drop off at around 3 rooms away. So like the router separated by 3 sets of walls or more. So although we expected a couple errors to arise originally when we chose this project, we didn't expect to receive quite as many errors as we actually did. In order to have a working project and overcome these challenges, we had to do a lot of debugging, a lot of Google searches, and receive a lot of help from our technical instructors, Cy and Anthony. So an additional source of Wi-Fi would allow for more users to be connected to the internet, which is so crucial in this time of virtual learning and working, like Steve pointed out. An additional Wi-Fi hotspot provided for families or organizations in need would be largely beneficial and help to decrease the digital divide. By participating in this program, we've developed a better understanding of how Raspberry Pi actually works. We've been exposed to coding in Python and improved our skills in working in the terminal. We also learned to do critical thinking regarding, how we can improve our community and how we can benefit those around us through the use of technology. Next slide, please. So this is just a picture of the setup. It doesn't have as much like visual flair to it as some of the other projects because we weren't very hardware focused, but you'll see we have the LED set up on the breadboard, the right, and then we have the Raspberry Pi connected on the left. So pretty much in this video, I was just going over our project actually working and functioning. So right here is the code to turn the LED light on, and Anthony and Sai really helped us out with, getting that to work. But when it is run, the LED light turns on, which shows that there's a stable Wi-Fi connection, and the Wi-Fi connection is coming from the Raspberry Pi hotspot. So that gray cable is the Ethernet cable connecting to the back of the Raspberry Pi and connecting to the router. And then the video seems to be a bit laggy, but yeah, there you go. When it's all connected and working, we are connected to RPI hotspot, which is the name of the router that we coded, and it's a secure connection. So that was our project. Thank you.